For the candidates who were not in the room earlier when we gave the instructions, these microphones are just a little different from the ones in City Hall. You push the middle button down and keep your finger on it when you're speaking, and when you release your finger, the mic will go off. So, anybody have any questions? Okay. Again, I'm going to introduce our moderator, Tom Creed. I think he's doing a great job tonight. How about everybody in the audience? Do you agree? Thanks, Tom. It's all yours.
My microphone is always on. I didn't think I could figure it out. Glad you can. Yes?
You might tell people not to watch that clock.
I will. And as Aline just reminded me, don't be looking at the clock to your left. It's wrong. You'll know what time it is with our instructions. So good evening, everyone, and especially good evening to all the at-large City Council candidates. It's my privilege to be here tonight to moderate. In just a couple of minutes, we're going to get started, but I do want to make sure that all of you are introduced to probably the two most important people for the next few minutes in your experience, and those are the two folks that are sitting at the table in front of you, John Kelly and Lori Belanger. For those of you who've been through a debate like this before, you know that each question I ask will be allotted a certain amount of time, and we want to make sure that you are able to understand where you are in that time environment. So as you begin to answer your questions, keep an eye on that table, because when you get to 30 seconds before your time is up, you will see those signs raised up. And when your time is finished, you will see those signs raised. Now, for those of you who were here for the school committee debate a little bit earlier, we never had to interrupt anybody. They did great. They were able to stay within their time allotment, and I hope that you were able to do the same. Thank you very much for cooperating in that respect. Tonight we're going to begin with an opening statement, 2 minutes each, with the order chosen randomly prior to this debate. We'll follow with 4 questions posed to each of you, order again, chosen randomly, allotting 60 seconds for each answer. We'll then do at least 2, and perhaps 3 if time permits, rounds of questions from a pool of 9. With questions and respondents chosen, again, randomly. Summations will round out our debate in the opposite order from the opening, limited to 1 minute. Now for the audience. Your cooperation, like in the first debate, is most critical. You'll only have 2 opportunities to applaud from this point on, at the beginning and at the end of our at-large City Council debate. No reactions at all, please, throughout the debate. Any distractions will only take away from the time our candidates have to respond to our questions. But now for your first opportunity to applaud, and please hold your applause until I've introduced everyone, but please join me in welcoming 8 of our 9 candidates for at-large City Council. Patricia Divine, Tessa Murphy-Romboletti, Kevin Jourdain, Jose Maldonado Velez, Israel Rivera, Axel Fontanez, Michael Sullivan, and Mimi Panitch. Welcome to all of you. Don't forget my instructions. Thank you very much. Now, I mentioned that all of us will have an opportunity for an opening statements, 2 minutes each. And I said that we've only got 8 of 9 candidates on the stage. All 9 accepted the invitation to be at tonight's debate, but we found out earlier tonight that Howard Greaney would not be here, and I have permission to say because he tested positive for COVID. He asked the Holyoke Taxpayers Association if he could submit at least his opening statement. They granted him that, which I will read now, under the same 2-minute restriction that the rest of the candidates will have. I should mention that all the opening statements, the order was chosen at random, and in fact, Mr. Greaney's opening statement would have been first. As a lifelong resident and homeowner of Holyoke, I would greatly appreciate the support of you and your families in the November 7th, 2023 municipal election. My experience includes 35 years as an educator in the Holyoke Public Schools 8 years as a small business owner and officer in 2 closely held corporations, bachelor's and master's degrees from AIC, and 21 credits in advanced graduate study. 6 years as an at-large member of the Holyoke School Committee on the Finance Subcommittee for those 6 years, and 4 years serving as a city councilor at large on the Public Safety Committee. I have 6 years of service in the United States Marine Corps Reserve, married to Ellen O'Shea Greaney, and father of 4 grown children, and grandfather to 4. I'm a member of the American Legion Post 325, Ancient Order of Hibernians, and the Holyoke Lodge of Elks. I believe that trust, honesty, and loyalty are mandatory requirements of all elected and appointed public officials. I will file and support legislation that promotes the safety and security of our citizens. I will support all necessary services to ensure our residents receive maximum benefits for their tax dollars. I will work to regain local control of our public school system, and I will continually seek input from our residents and address their concerns in a timely fashion. Every vote I take on all issues that come before the City Council will always be in the best interest of the City of Holyoke and all of its citizens. I have no personal or private agenda, and I will never dodge any issue that comes before the Council, no matter how controversial it is. Please consider my experience, community service, and my record of fiscal responsibility when you vote in the November election. Once again, thank you for your continued support. Thank you, Mr. Greaney. Our next opening statement, 2 minutes, Ms. Divine.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. First, I'd like to thank the Holyoke Taxpayers Association for sponsoring this debate. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Patty Divine, and I'm running for City Councilor at large. I'm hoping to be the voice of reason and experience, as well as the voice of respect. We need to respect our city employees and stop interrogating them when they are called before subcommittee meetings of the council. I cringe sometimes when I'm watching the city council subcommittees at how our employees, especially the law department, are treated. From 1990 to 2000, I was urged by former councilor and police officer Pat Higgins to run for office. I was fortunate to be elected to the Ward 6 City Council seat, and it was an honor to be unopposed for 8 of those 10 years. I then took some time off and ran again in 2005 and was elected as City Councilor at large. Mayor Morse then appointed me to the Fire Commission, a post I held for 3 years. I'm hoping that my years of experience will be beneficial to our city. Our city is losing almost 90 years of experience with Joe McGivern, Todd McGee, and Peter Tallman stepping down. During my past 16 years as a city councilor, I was fortunate to be named the chair of public safety for 14 of those 16 years. I am pro-union, having worked as an assistant business manager for the Office of Professional Employees Local 6. My background in finance for the Massachusetts State Lottery gives me the necessary experience needed on the City Council. I'm also pro-business. The newer businesses that we can bring into the city will be, again, making Holyoke a better place. And again, the interrogations must stop. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you. Ms. Murphy-Romboletti, your opening statement.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you to the Holyoke Taxpayers Association for hosting tonight's forum, and to all the candidates for running. My name is Tessa Murphy-Romboletti, and I am running for re-election to the City Council as an at-large representative because I want to make sure that Holyoke City Hall continues to work for everyone. As a product of the Holyoke Public Schools, I know how important it is to support the educators who are teaching our future leaders. As a former city employee, I know the importance of fostering and retaining talent through increasing morale and ensuring proper pay. We often lose city employees because we are not a competitive place to work, and that directly impacts the city services that you so deserve. As the executive director of a small business incubator, which has helped launch dozens of small businesses right here in the city of Holyoke, I see firsthand the struggles of starting a new business and creating new job opportunities. In my first term, I was quickly thrown into a position of leadership, and I have learned a lot about what it means to be an elected official. I was appointed by the City Council President to serve as the Chair of Development and Government Relations, the subcommittee of the City Council that works closest with the Office of Planning and Economic Development, overseeing special permits and business incentives in order to attract more businesses and expand our tax base. As an at-large counselor who has lived in many different wards of our city, I understand that each neighborhood's ward is different and each person's challenges are important to them. I believe that all of our city's neighborhoods need to be represented equally, and I take constituent services very seriously, delivering timely and responsive communication to residents who come looking to me for help. These are the people I represent on the City Council now, and that is why I am asking you to re-elect me to a second term. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you. Mr. Jourdain, your opening statement.
Thank you. Appreciate very much the Holyoke Taxpayers Association giving us this opportunity for this discussion this evening. I want to wish everyone a very good evening. My name is Kevin Jourdain, and I am a candidate for re-election to the City Council. I have nearly 3 decades of experience representing the people of Holyoke. Throughout that time, I've earned a reputation as a strong, independent voice who's not afraid to stand up for the people who, like me, call Holyoke home. I'm proud to serve as our city's fiscal watchdog. I believe in keeping taxes and fees low to make our city an affordable place for families to live. That means imposing fiscal discipline on city government. I also believe in a government that is accountable to the people in every way. For example, I think it is high time that we restore local control of our Holyoke schools to the people of this city. This is your government. I also want our city to be a safe place to live. I'm proud to have been the deciding vote to implement the ShotSpotter technology to help our police save lives and identify shooters on our city streets. That technology is working to make our city safer every day. I'm also proud to have worked hard to revitalize our downtown, including getting High Street repaved, to make it a vibrant and attractive place for people to work. This election is about our city's future, and we have lots left to accomplish. I look forward to playing an active role in shaping our city's next chapter, making Holyoke a safe, affordable, and enjoyable place for everyone to call home. I look forward to discussing more about my vision for our city during tonight's discussion. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Mr. Maldonado Velez, your opening statement.
Thank you, Tom. Excuse me. And thank you to the Holyoke Taxpayers Association for hosting this debate tonight. And also thank you to city departments, to Holyoke Media, to organizations like Neighbor to Neighbor for being here today. I think when I'm asked as why I'm running again for re-election is because of the people of the city, because everyone that's here. It's Thursday night, we can be anywhere else, and we decided to be here because we believe in this city can be the best that it can be. And all of us are working towards that. And what we need is a city council that doesn't work against the people that are trying to make this city better, but actually works with the people of the city. I am a Holyoker through and through. I was born in Providence Hospital, raised in the Flats, a product of the Holyoke public school systems. I've seen a lot, experienced a lot, and I still love the city. I believe that all of us together can make the city the best city that it can be. In my first term as a city councilor, as the chair of Charter and Rules, I restructured the city council rules, not changing them, but simply making them make more sense. We've had this convoluted, outdated, really slow system, and it's time that we update and upgrade our government, and that is why I'm running for re-election, because that wasn't gonna take place in 2 years. This is gonna be an ongoing effort, making sure that it doesn't just serve us right now, but it serves the future as well. I believe if one of us succeed in this city, we all succeed. But that success needs to be rooted in love, it needs to be rooted in equity, it needs to be rooted in humanity. And for a long time, the city council has not seen the humanity in many people in our city. And for the first time in these last 2 years, I have gotten a glimpse of that. And that's why I'm running for re-election, asking for your vote, because we need to make sure that our government, the people that we elect, are not, again, working against the people that are trying to make the city the best that it can be, but working with them. So thank you. Thank you all for being here today, and I hope to get your vote by the end of this debate. Thank you.
Mr. Rivera, your opening statement.
Thank you, Tom. So first, I would like to thank my wife for allowing me the time to run for office, right? I'd like to thank my two daughters, my three daughters, Michaela, Isla, and Izzy, and the Holyoke Taxpayers Association as well. I also would like to thank the Holyoke Taxpayers Association for the flexibility in getting translation, because it's dearly needed for the community, especially if we're going to be representative of the whole community overall, which is one of the main reasons why I ran the first time. This is my third time running. I lost the first time, for those of you that don't know. So again, my name is Rivera. I was raised here in Holyoke. I wasn't born here. I was born in Indiana. We moved to Puerto Rico, and from Puerto Rico, we came here. I've been here since I was about 3 to 4 years old, attended Holyoke Public Schools. It was McMahon, Magnet Middle School, and then Holyoke High School. Throughout this journey, I got very fond of 3 different teachers that helped me out throughout my process. I'm not going to name them because there are a lot of other teachers that were great teachers too, but these 3 teachers know who they are. For me, here in Holyoke, there is a thing where we have an older generation of Holyoke that has, or not just the older generation, just the older thought process, and then there's a newer thought process, right? So for me, I was raised by the older thought process, and I understand where the newer thought process is coming from, and I'm feeling like the position I take is to try to mend the 2 relationships and bring them together. So here, I am here standing here asking for your vote on November 7th. With the experience and background that I have gained throughout the 2 years as chair of public safety, as well as the several other years that I have as running as a nonprofit director, a community engagement organizer, and as well as community engagement manager through the Holyoke Public Schools. A lot of my experience comes from organizing people and bringing people together in spaces that they normally are not used to or are accustomed to.
Thank you. Mr. Fontanez, your opening statement.
Good evening, Holyoke. My name's Axel. I want to say thank you to the Holyoke taxpayers. I also want to say thank you to my family. I have been in and out of Holyoke for years. I haven't had the privilege to go to all the schools back to back like some of the candidates. As of right now, I work at the Providence Ministries Literary House. I'm the housing director there. I had the privilege of working for Career Point as a workforce development person, and there I gained more knowledge of the underprivileged youth from 16 through 24 years old, and I can say today, as all those youth that we helped, there's 3 at least that I know are doing good. So that type of work I love. I also worked for Latino Economic Development Corporation, helping businesses and business coaching, multiple business in the city of Holyoke. I volunteer time for the Greater Holyoke Chamber. I'm an ambassador. I try to bridge the gap between new businesses that attend and connect them to the older businesses and all the stuff. I'm also on the board of Nueva Esperanza, and I love the work that we do there. So I'm hoping if anybody has any questions or anything else they might want to know about me, they can communicate with me. November 7, vote Axel Fontanez, City Council at Large.
Mr. Sullivan, your opening statement.
Thank you. My name is Michael Sullivan, lifelong resident of Holyoke, homeowner, proud graduate of the Holyoke school system, and graduate of UMass. Served 6 years in the Mass 104th TAC Fighter Group out in Westfield, honorably discharged, and served 6 years previously on the City Council as a councilor at large. Quite an experience there. Proud of my accomplishments during that time, especially around the area of blight remediation in this city, and very proud of the work I've done with many of our youth groups, particularly Paper City Basketball, the Holyoke Wolfpack AAU team. But I think over the last six years on the council and the time spent during the mayoral campaign, a lot of the voters are familiar with me. So given only 2 minutes, I'd like to hit on 2 points and drive it home as quickly as I can. The basic principle of our country, the freedom to vote. And I'm shocked at over the whole 6 years and the mayoral campaign, the low voter turnout. And even the sparse turnout here tonight for this. And I would like to reach out to the voters of Holyoke, everybody here in this audience, to reach out to your friends, to the people listening on TV and that'll watch it in the future. Reach out to your friends and participate in this democratic process. A few seconds left. Holyoke has a golden opportunity, a once-in-a-generational opportunity to expand on our green energy footprint, and that's where a big part of my focus would be for the city.
Ms. Panitch, your opening statement.
Hey. Good evening, everybody. I'm Mimi Panitch. I would like to echo everybody's thanks to the Holyoke Taxpayers Association. I was raised in Holyoke. I moved away for law school and worked in a big New York law firm for some years. And that's relevant, I think, here, because it was the kind of work that you do when you are advising governments on how to change their regulations and their laws to deal with international bank collapses. It was lobbying the Treasury to try to get their rules to work better for both the people I was working for and the public good. And I think you can think of me as kind of a mechanic. And I'm running for city council because I think that kind of work is something that the council as a whole can benefit from. We have antiquated rules that keep legislation from moving through rapidly. We have a whole lot of work that's stuck in jackets that needs to be done. And I also have spent quite a long time on the planning board now. I was appointed by Mayor Pluta. I've been reappointed by both Mayor Morse and Mayor Garcia, so it's a nonpartisan kind of appointment. And planning is crucial to the future of this city. We all know we need economic development. We need to bring businesses in. Economic development per se is only half the job. Planning, the work of conservation, all of that needs to be done. And I want to echo Mr. Sullivan. We have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to strengthen our infrastructure, to make it the basis of real prosperity here and not managed decline. And I think we should do it, and I hope to be able to help. And I'm going to respect the timekeeper and stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. The next section of the debate, we're going to be focused on 4 issues through 4 issue questions. Those issues are on affordable housing, governmental structure, property tax rate, and public safety. These questions will be asked in random order chosen prior to this debate, as well as the respondents will be in random order. You may tire of me reading these 4 questions over the next half an hour, but I promise you none of us will tire of your responses. The first question goes to Mr. Maldonado Velez. Despite recent investments in housing throughout the city, when the Holyoke Housing Authority advertised 12 recently completed units in South Holyoke, over 1,000 applications were received. Is there a housing crisis in Holyoke, and what housing solutions might you pursue on the City Council? 60 seconds.
Thank you for the question, Tom. Not only is there a housing crisis in Holyoke, there's a housing crisis in this whole country. And to believe that we alone are going to solve this housing crisis on our own, I would be a lie. However, I do believe there are steps that us as a city can start taking in order to be creative and really start bringing look at housing differently. We can look into co-ops where people start owning the properties that they're actually in with other individuals. We can start looking at different ways where when a landlord decides to sell, the tenants of the house, of the apartment, are the first ones that get a say as to become owners of those buildings. We can look at mixed-use properties. A lot of times we just focus on building housing, but also creating other aspects of the whole person within the same building, within the same block. We can look at tiny homes. I think there's a lot of different ways that we can attack housing, and I don't believe it's just going to be a solution that comes from our city. I think it is a regional approach, but I do believe that Holyoke can be a model as to what it can be. Thank you.
Mr. Fontanez. For many years, it has been debated that the city combine the offices of treasurer, assessor, and tax collector into one office and have an appointed CFO responsible for managing a finance department. Would you support such a reorganization? Why or why not? And what other organizational improvements, if any, would you recommend in support of greater efficiency and productivity in city government? 1 minute.
I just want to start by saying that this is a question that I would go way over 60 seconds. I'm more than welcome to address this Zoom, phone call, anything like that with anybody. Jot my number down, 413-230-6778. I just don't want to go over the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Divine, same question on governmental structure. For many years, it's been debated that the city combine the offices of treasurer, assessor, and tax collector into one office and have an appointed CFO responsible for managing a finance department. Would you support such a reorganization? Why or why not? And what other organizational improvements, if any, would you recommend in support of greater efficiency and productivity in city government?
Excuse me, I do agree that we need to put those offices together. The treasurer is usually an elected position, and Rory Casey, who is our current treasurer, his name is on the ballot in November. So I'm not quite sure what's going to happen there. But the treasurer, the tax collector, and I'm sorry, I just lost track. The treasurer, tax collector, and the others should be in the finance department under the mayor's authority. I think the mayor is the one that is there every day. I think the mayor needs to get this finance in order so that the city can be better served throughout the whole government.
Ms. Panitch, the next question is for you. Residents pay $18.78 per thousand in valuation. Business pays $40.20 per thousand in valuation for property tax, and not-for-profits are not subject to property taxes. Mass Live reports the average homeowner in Holyoke pays $600 more in residential taxes than the average Chicopee homeowner, and the business rate is among the highest in the Commonwealth. These rates are supplemented by CPA property surcharges and rising sewer rates. If elected, what will you do to promote the right balance which supports homeownership while encouraging development? 1 minute.
Okay, thank you very much. This is obviously a tangled mess of a system. I don't like the split rate tax system any more than anybody else. I don't like having to cast the extra burden onto business, but I think we cannot do anything about it at the moment, because if we significantly raise the tax rate on homeowners, we are going to displace 2/3 of Holyoke. People will have to leave, people will sell their houses. For now, I think what we have to do is focus on economic growth, bring businesses in, try to support them. I think the CPA tax is minimal, and it is bringing in like $19 on the dollar paid. That's not the place to cut. But we obviously have to be careful, and we have to just, I think, fight through this temporary, I hope, situation and deal with it as we can bring new businesses in. Thanks.
Ms. Murphy-Romboletti, same questions. Residents pay $18.78 per thousand in property tax valuation. Business pays $40.20 per thousand, and not-for-profits are not subject to property taxes. Mass Live reports the average homeowner in Holyoke pays $600 more in residential taxes than the average Chicopee homeowner, and the business rate is among the highest in the Commonwealth. These rates are supplemented by CPA property surcharges and rising sewer rates. If elected, what will you do to promote the right balance which supports home ownership while encouraging development?
Thank you. This is a really complex question, but something that I have been able to see firsthand in my first term on the city council. There is a problem with our taxes, and it goes beyond that. There is a major problem with our assessments as well, and that often doesn't benefit certain people. We do need to be looking at additional sources of revenue, including grants, which is why I have supported the mayor in his effort to hire a grant writer in the DPW. There's a lot of funding that's out there and available if we have the right staff who can go after those grants. And I also think, as the chair of DGR and someone who runs a program that helps small businesses. I'm keenly aware of the challenges that face small business owners, and I can appreciate the need to balance and make decisions that are impacting Holyoke on the long term and not avoiding making tough decisions in order to save a penny, only to spend $1. Thank you.
Mr. Sullivan, Holyoke is not immune to higher criminal statistics, including violent and drug-related crimes. What steps would you take as a city councilor in supporting our first responders and residents in providing a safe environment in which to live and work? 1 minute.
Thank you. Boy, great question. Wish I had an hour for that one. But direct experience here. Code enforcement. I've had the experience of working with HPD. It's one thing to have the departments out enforcing codes, out enforcing the laws, making arrests. It's another thing to get the courts to do their job. And one thing I would do and be willing to do, would encourage other councilors to do, and would support our mayor, would be to stand in front of the judges like former Chief Scott used to do and see to it that the scofflaws weren't let go.
Thank you. Mr. Jourdain, your question is also on property tax rate. I'm welcome to read the question over again, or I can simply say, if elected, what will you do to find a better balance which supports home ownership while encouraging development?
Absolutely, Tom. Yes, I was listening very carefully to your other statement on that. First of all, it begins with talking about, are we actually properly spending the money that's already being sent to City Hall already? My job has been consistently, despite whatever type of political pressure or otherwise, to ask the difficult and tough questions that need to be asked to make sure that city government is actually spending your money properly. I also am not afraid to tackle on the establishment, just like we did 4 years ago when we had this proposal to build 2 middle schools that we couldn't afford for $160 million with a massive tax override. That was all before COVID and the skyrocketing of property values. Thank God to the 65% of the citizens, and I would dare say if that went on the ballot today, probably be 90% of the citizens, voted that down so that we got the 1 middle school that we actually needed with no tax override. That's what an effective city councilor gets done, saving you tens of millions of dollars. Thank you.
Mr. Rivera, despite recent investments in housing throughout the city, when the Holyoke Housing Authority advertised 12 recently completed units in South Holyoke, over 1,000 applications were received. Is there a housing crisis in Holyoke, and what housing solutions might you pursue in the City Council?
Thank you. As mentioned before, the housing crisis is not just in Holyoke. The housing crisis is across the country. I think it would be gullible for any of us to believe that we can tackle this by ourselves. I think the solution is to work in collaboration with a variety of different housing entities like One Holyoke CDC, Holyoke Housing Authority, as well as Wayfinders to ensure that they are able to come in and build new housing, but at the same time trying to make sure that we can bring our fair share too as well with taxes. Some of these nonprofits, as we covered in another topic, are not coming into the community and paying taxes, but as some of them are coming in and paying pilots. And if we could try to at least get a pilot out of them, then that would work for us.
Ms. Panitch, the question on governmental structure. For many years, it's been debated that the city combine the offices of treasurer, assessor, and tax collector into one office and have an appointed CFO responsible for managing a finance department. Would you support such a reorganization? Why or why not? And what other organizational improvements, if any, would you recommend in support of greater efficiency and productivity in city government?
Great question. Yes, I would support the reorganization, and I think The problem really is, although we have been fortunate to have good people step up, you cannot rely on someone who is competent to manage a multi-million-dollar organization being willing to run for treasurer every 4 years. If you can appoint somebody, you can go out and recruit someone who you know actually has the credentials to do the job. So I don't know how quickly we could do it, and obviously the devil is always in the details, but yes. And I'm already getting a stop. No, that. Okay, thanks. And while I have the opportunity, I would also like to give a pitch for maybe separating out OPED. Economic development and planning are not the same thing, and while they have to work together and should work together, I think that it might be worthwhile for the city to explore separating them as they were once separated, and maybe putting planning in with conservation and buildings. Now I've got the stop sign. Thanks.
Ms. Murphy-Romboletti, on public safety. Holyoke is not immune to higher criminal statistics, including violent and drug-related crime. What steps would you take as a city councilor in supporting our first responders and residents in providing a safe environment in which to live and work?
Thank you. So this is a topic that's very near and dear to me for some personal reasons, and I really believe strongly in the effectiveness of community policing. I know a lot of people reminisce on the Chief Scott days, but I like to reminisce on the Chief Neiswanger days when crime went down 37%, and we saw police out on foot patrol, and we went an entire year without a homicide. So as a city councilor, I've always supported the police department's budget. I've supported the fire department's budget. I understand that there's a lot, it's a really hard job, but I also believe that if community policing is done right, and you have the right people doing it, and you have the right training and resources for our public safety officers, then we can see results. So I'm prepared to be a bridge between folks that may not be able to see eye to eye on this, and hopefully we can continue making our city a better place to live.
Ms. Divine, residents pay $18.78 per thousand in valuation, business pays $40.20 per thousand in valuation, and not-for-profits are not subject to property taxes. Mass Live reports the average homeowner in Holyoke pays $600 more in residential taxes than the average Chicopee homeowner, and the business rate is among the highest in the Commonwealth. These rates are supplemented by CPA property surcharges and rising sewer rates. If elected, what would you do to find a better balance which supports home ownership while encouraging development?
I do think that by having new businesses come into the city, that is going to be better for the homeowners. The more people that you can get into the city as business owners, the lesson should be that the homeowners' taxes go down. But for years now, the taxes, they've been trying to get those lowered for businesses for so long. I remember being on the council when I first got on, and one city councilor actually made a motion to have it raise $2 per thousand. And that's when it started, unfortunately. So we have to keep bringing those the business taxes down.
Thank you, Mr. Jourdain. On governmental structure, for many years it's been debated that the city combine the offices of treasurer, assessor, and tax collector into one office and have an appointed CFO responsible for managing a finance department. Would you support such a reorganization? Why or why not? And what other organizational improvements, if any, would you recommend in support of greater efficiency and productivity in city government?
Thank you. Great question. First of all, I would say in terms of the assessors and auditor, the treasurer and collector, these positions currently, with the exception of treasurer, are currently appointed by the city council. I would continue that. There is a very specific reason for checks and balances on the financial management positions being independent of the mayor. The reason for that is so that the mayor has day-to-day operations, but they have a fiscal day-to-day oversight. I do agree with ending the treasurer as elected. It should be appointed. Currently, vacancies are appointed by the city council. That should continue. We also should merge the tax collector and treasurer's office. I do not support the $1 million consultant plan that they have right now. That is way too long. We cannot be wasting millions of dollars in this office over many years. So at this point, we need to get to it, and that's why I appreciated joining the mayor on filing a new fiscal policy manual. Thank you.
Mr. Sullivan, same question on governmental structure. Would you support the reorganization that we've described? Why or why not? And what other organizational improvements, if any, would you recommend in support of greater efficiency and productivity in city government?
Yeah, I would absolutely support the elimination of the treasurer as an elected office. The need for a CFO is obvious. The fact that we have a $160 million budget that could be overseen through a process where a person with no financial background, no business background, could be elected and oversee a budget like that with no experience except the ability to go out and garner votes for themselves. It just blows my mind. But it should go in such a way, as Councilor Jourdain stated, we need to have checks and balances in place. And one point nobody's touched on, which is the painful point, is we have to properly fund that position as well. The same that applies towards have an unqualified person. To attract a qualified person, we have to have a qualified salary as well.
Thank you. Mr. Rivera, on the issue of property tax rate, I've described the rates and the issues around these rates. If elected, what would you do to find a better balance which supports home ownership while encouraging development?
If elected, I would work in tandem with the Office of Economic Development and the mayor, as well as a variety of other offices, to make sure that we are doing the best we can to be able to make sure that we're keeping rates as low as we can without impacting offices and daily services. The reality of what it is that we've actually pushed the bucket down the road so long that now we're at a point that a lot of things are, what do they call it? I don't know how to say it and hold the microphone, right? So at the end of the day, we got to try to rate that ship. And in a sense, that's another one of the reasons why I'm running now, because I want to right that ship for my kids before they become 15, 20, 30 years old, and they don't have to deal with the problems that I'm dealing with today, or we are as a community. Thank you.
Mr. Fontanez, on the issue of public safety, Holyoke is not immune to higher criminal statistics, including violent and drug-related crimes. What steps would you as a city councilor take in supporting our first responders and residents in providing a safe environment in which to live and work?
I 100% support all first responders. I also believe in the community policing, but I believe in both together would make a greater impact. I don't believe one or the other on its own. So it's a community and we all need to work together. A lot of people got to step up to the plate and say, what can I contribute to my community to make it safer? It's like a puzzle. You need, it's like a puzzle. There's 100 pieces. If one's missing, it doesn't look right. So we're all part of the puzzle, and little or more, we can all do something and put our efforts forward to make our community safer. That's it. That's all.
Mr. Maldonado Velez, the same question. What steps would you as a city councilor take in supporting our first responders and residents in providing a safe environment in which to live and work?
Thank you, Tom, for that question. So public safety is something that I'm passionate about, very passionate about. I think a lot of times when we think of public safety, we automatically think punitive actions. And we need to start taking preventive actions in order to avoid the problems in the first place. You know, that means having housing that fits for everyone, and they're not scared that they're going to be placed out or priced out. That means everyone has access to food, has access to jobs, access to education, and everyone believes that they are allowed to be up here in elected officials or in any leadership position. And that all comes from, one, us believing in the best of the people and believing that we are, again, capable of creating a better Holyoke. You know, some of the things that we've put forward as a community responder model, we are tasking police with things that are beyond what they should be doing. You know, however you feel about the police, the reality is that in conversation with the police, we're asking them to deal with mental health crises when they are not mental health workers. And until we get past that and we put social workers out there, or we put ourselves, our community members out there to deal with ourselves and work in community, then we'll continue having these issues. But I do believe that we can make it better. Thank you.
Mr. Jourdain, despite recent investments in housing throughout the city, when the Holyoke Housing Authority advertised 12 recently completed units in South Holyoke, over 1,000 applications were received. Is there a housing crisis in Holyoke, and what solutions might you pursue in the City Council?
Well, there's certainly an affordability housing problem throughout the entire nation, but here in particular in Holyoke, this is one of the key points I've had continue to emphasize in my campaign, the need to keep this community affordable. This doesn't just happen. This happens by electing the right people who make smart decisions that don't keep asking you constantly, more money, more money, more money. We have a lot of available property in order to put additional housing and to also hold slumlords and different people accountable that have property today. But this means we need to have smart policies, not implementing crazy things like gas moratoriums, jacking up sewer rates beyond what's reasonable, this middle school tax issue that I talked about earlier. I mean, this is it. We just keep layering it on the homeowners instead of being responsible with the massive budget that is already given. And lastly, let me point out, I'm the only one that's been consistently saying to the state, pony up and treat this city fairly and give us equitable local aid. That needs to begin immediately. Thank you.
Mr. Sullivan, on the issue of property tax rate, I'm happy to read the entire question again, but otherwise, if elected, what will you do to find a better balance which supports home ownership while encouraging development?
So one of the things that we really need to do on the commercial and industrial side is a full data survey of all the existing businesses, commercial and industrial, in the city. I think if that was done, we'd find that we have a higher valuation, which would result in a lower overall commercial tax rate. At $40, we're the highest in the state. Just about impossible, as we've just seen recently, without putting tax incremental financing in place and special programs that have to go through various committees in the council to approve. We just need to get a lower overall commercial tax rate.
Mr. Rivera, on the issue of public safety, what steps would you, as a city councilor, take in supporting our first responders and residents in providing a safe environment in which to live and work?
I think, so for me, I'm passionate about this topic too, as well. As chair of public safety, there's been a variety of orders that we filed with regards to the community responder model, and I'm also working, hopefully, in collaboration with the mayor, if I re-elected, on developing an office of returning citizens that can help get people that are coming back to our community the services that are needed, so that they're not out there on the streets looking and searching for services or asking people for money on the road. Ultimately, I think that I'm done. Oh, no? 30 seconds. Okay. I still got 30 seconds. So ultimately, for me, I think the most important thing is prevention and investing in programs like the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club, the Safe Neighborhood Initiative, and the Holyoke Hub. There are a variety of different options that we're doing, and collaboration is key in Holyoke, and that is our strong suit here. So if we could focus on our collaborations and make sure that all the organizations that are working together in tandem come together, we can do this as a community. Thank you.
Mr. Fontanez, on affordable housing, despite recent investments in housing throughout the city, when the Holyoke Housing Authority advertised 12 recently completed units in South Holyoke, over 1,000 applications were received. Is there a housing crisis in Holyoke, and what housing solutions might you pursue in the City Council?
So I'll definitely echo what a lot of the other candidates have said. There's definitely a housing crisis, not just in Holyoke. Just real briefly, being the housing director at the Loretto House, I've had people call and come in looking to rent rooms that aren't even looking for sober homes. They're just looking for somewhere to rent at an affordable price because they can't find anything. A lot of people are rooming with other people, paying exaggerated $700 to be in somebody's house room, or it's tough, but we all know that. If elected to the city council, I would work together to come up with solutions and, help our community and, get creative and bring different entities and different people together that work in different places and come together to look for a solution and help our community with the housing crisis.
Mr. Maldonado Velez, I've described the reorganization, including the appointed CFO responsible for managing a finance department. Would you support such a reorganization? Why or why not? And what other organizational improvements, if any, would you recommend in support of greater efficiency and productivity in city government?
Thank you, Tom, for that question. As a chair of Charter and Rules, and I'll start off there, I restructure the council rules simply so that it can make more sense, so that those that come afterwards don't have to spend a whole year and a half trying to even figure out numberings and why the rules are what they are. And I think that has a lot to say with how the government as a whole is restructured. It's very confusing. You shouldn't have to have a law degree in order to know what the law means and what it is, because you are a person in this community as well, and the law affects you just the same. As far as the financial part of it, the Division of Local Services has recommended for us. These are the experts when the municipal government saying, hey, you need to restructure it. And as a city councilor, look towards the experts and know and ask the questions, but also realize this is not my expertise, so I'm going to rely on them and lean on them, and that is what they've been recommended for the last decade. So I do believe, and I support Mayor Garcia's efforts in restructuring the financial department, because we are in need of restructuring all of the government, but in particular within our finances. Thank you.
Ms. Panitch, on the issue of affordable housing that we've described in previous questions, is there a housing crisis in Holyoke? And what housing solutions might you pursue in the City Council?
There's definitely a housing crisis in Holyoke, and the statistic you read is unfortunately not out of line. There are unbelievable numbers of applicants for every housing unit we bring online. But having said that, it is not just a Holyoke problem, it's a state problem. And one of the things that no one has mentioned so far is that there are now probably a dozen or more bills before the Massachusetts state legislature that they're considering. We don't know what is going to actually emerge, but they're extensive, and the city council is going to have to deal with whatever comes out of that process. They affect zoning, they affect density, they will affect housing. And rather than just repeat what everybody else has said, much of which I agree with, I think I should leave it there, because once again, I see the stop sign about to come up. Thanks.
Ms. Murphy-Romboletti, I've described under governmental structure the reorganization, including the appointment of a CFO responsible for managing a finance department in the city. Would you support such a reorganization? Why or why not? And what other organizational improvements, if any, would you recommend in support of greater efficiency and productivity in city government?
Thank you. I've been looking forward to this question. So I'm actually the only city councilor who did not vote to cut the CAFO position, Chief Administrative Financial Officer. I did not want to cut that from the position or from the budget, because I really believed that we need to move as quickly as possible on implementing this structure. I believe that the CAFO position is still, unfortunately, sitting in the ordinance committee, so we haven't been able to move that forward yet. But I believe, actually, the opposite of some of my colleagues, that the elected position of treasurer should be appointed, and appointed by the mayor. We currently appoint 3 financial department heads. We do not need to appoint another. There is no other business structure where the CEO of a business does not have any financial oversight over a financial department in their city. So that's why we need to restructure, and that's what I'm going to continue to do as a city councilor in this position. Thank you.
Ms. Divine, on the issue of affordable housing that I've described, is there a housing crisis in Holyoke, and what solutions might you pursue in the City Council?
I do think there's a housing crisis, not only in Holyoke, but throughout the state of Massachusetts. Governor Healy just appointed a board to look into this, and she specifically said that she would look into Western Massachusetts. So I think that's a good thing to do, because sometimes it seems like we're always forgotten out here. But I do think we need to get those places open so that people that they're not sure where to go to see for affordable housing, but they have a place to go, so someone can look into that for them, whether it's the Housing Authority, whether it's other groups, but people need help getting affordable housing, and we need help from the state as well.
Mr. Sullivan, same question. Is there a housing crisis in Holyoke, and what housing solutions might you pursue in the City Council?
Well, I'll echo everybody else on that, but it's unfair what the state is doing. This problem, as everybody has stated, is across the entire Commonwealth, but the gateway cities, so-called gateway cities, of which Holyoke is one, is being asked to carry an unfair share of that statewide burden. We have to lobby our legislators to make sure that the surrounding communities are all carrying their fair share as well. And one thing I would advocate for very strongly is a continuation of policies that are a proven success, a gateway to ownership, similar to what went on with Churchill Homes as being a real solution in Holyoke.
We're on the home stretch of this round, everybody. Mr. Rivera, in terms of governmental structure, I've described a reorganization in the city, including the appointment of a CFO responsible for managing a finance department. Would you support such a reorganization? Why or why not? What other organizational improvements, if any, would you recommend in support of greater efficiency and productivity in city government?
So yes, I would support the reorganization. Although it's awesome to have the position as an elected position, so that way the government and the people can have a voice in our how we select our treasurer. It's not necessarily the case where we're always going to find a qualified candidate that runs, right? So for us moving in the direction to remove it as an elected position and making it appointed is an important piece for our city government in the future. But I think one of the most important pieces to mention is that although in the first time we didn't vote for the CAFO position and we did cut it, but at the end of the day, it is sitting right now in committee and has been sitting in committee for a couple months right now. So it's up to us councilors now that are acting can actually vote on it and put it into position so that we can start the process of actually making this happen and not having it as a question for this debate. Thank you.
Ms. Divine, on the issue of public safety, same question. What steps would you as a city councilor take in supporting our first responders and residents in providing a safe environment in which to live and work?
We certainly need to train our officers, our fire department, our DPW, and any of those that are involved in public safety. We need to give them all the tools that they need. I too believe in community policing. I think that is great for neighborhoods to get to know their police officers. And I do think that whatever we can put into this public safety, we need to do that. We need to have contract negotiations that are fair and equitable in the police department, the fire department, DPW, and I think we just need to protect our public servants a lot more than we've been doing.
Mr. Fontanez, I feel like I haven't read this question in a while, so I'm going to read it all again. Residents pay $18.78 per thousand in valuation. Business pays $40.20 per thousand in valuation, and not-for-profits are not subject to property taxes. Mass Live reports the average homeowner in Holyoke pays $600 more in residential taxes than the average Chicopee homeowner, and the business rate is among the highest in the Commonwealth. These rates are supplemented by CPA property surcharges and rising sewer rates. If elected, what will you do to find a better balance which supports home ownership while encouraging development?
So I believe economic development is important for the taxes not to have to go up. It'll help it in a way to buffer it. I honestly, I'm not too versed in this topic. I'm not gonna try to explain much further in the 60 seconds, but I will be posting some responses to these questions through social media. Thank you very much.
Mr. Maldonado Velez, same question for you. If elected, what will you do to find a better balance which supports home ownership while encouraging development?
Thank you for the question, Tom. So I was the one that proposed this last year's tax for 1878 for residential, 40/20 for commercial. And the reality is, whichever tax rate we set up, one side gets, lack of better word, screwed over. If the residential goes down, that's great, but the commercial then goes up. If the commercial goes down, that's great, but then the residential goes up. What we need to start doing, and I think a lot of our colleagues in the council has agreed, is, and as stated before, the state needs to start pulling their weight and realizing that we are a gateway city and we need to, they need to change the formula for us. You know, at a time that there was a time we had 20,000 more people in our city. Now we're down 40,000 and we're still expected to pay the same amount of taxes. It doesn't make any sense. So I think part of the efforts that I would like to do in the second term is really bring in our state legislators or bring in the state to be like, hey, change your formula or do something to make sure that what we're paying is equitable and it actually makes sense for our community, because right now it does not make any sense. Thank you.
Ms. Panitch, on the issue of public safety, what steps would you take as a city councilor in supporting our first responders and residents in providing a safe environment in which to live and work?
Wow, there's a question that can't be answered in 60 seconds, but I'm going to go all utopian on this. I think the police are worthy of support. I support them. I think we have many fine officers who got into this job to do the right thing. I think that to the extent that there is mistrust downtown, we can address that by addressing the issues that were raised in the police audit that was done a year ago. I think we could use a civilian police commission. I think we can bring in people, the residents downtown who have been affected by policing, who Chief Pratt worries mistrust the police themselves, and find ways to show everybody that there doesn't need to be ways or mistrust. We're all on the same page here. We all basically care about Holyoke and want the same things. And I think once those issues are fully addressed, it will be easier for our police and it will be easier for our citizens and we will have a better city for everybody. Thank you.
Mr. Jourdain, on public safety, what steps would you as a city councilor take in supporting our first responders and residents in providing a safe environment in which to live and work?
First thing we should do for our first responders is appreciate them, to thank them for the job that they do. And they don't always hear that from the city council. I have opposed efforts on this city council to defund police. I have a strong record of supporting initiatives like ShotSpotter, and I've done it for many, many years. People are also praising the increase in the back for community policing back in 2016. I was the city council president at that time. We put significant efforts in to get that done, and we need to continue to restore that. I'll just make up some other additional points. You just need to listen to our first responders themselves. They made an endorsement in this race. Both policemen unions looked at the candidates and endorsed my candidacy for re-election. They know I have their back. They need to have city councilors that do support them. And that's the only way we're going to continue to make this community safe, support police, give them the resources and tools they need to do the job. Same with our fire department and our other first responders in this community. They need to know we're behind them.
And finally, in this round, Ms. Murphy-Romboletti, in affordable housing, is there a housing crisis in Holyoke, and what housing solutions might you pursue on the city council?
There's absolutely a housing crisis in Holyoke and our entire state and country. In my time on the city council, I said yes to the opportunity to be a part of the Housing Quality and Health Equity Initiative as a Holyoke City Council representative. This position has allowed me to advocate strongly to state leaders, to advocate for more legislation that will create quality housing, direct more funding to Western Massachusetts so that people actually, it makes sense for people to build housing here in Massachusetts, or Western Mass. It really doesn't. And some of the incentives that we have don't work well in Western Massachusetts. So I've been able to advocate for that in this role. I will continue to do that because this is, quality housing is a right that folks deserve. And so I will continue to advocate for that. Thank you.
It is absolutely true that none of those 4 issues can be fully explored in 1 minute, but you all did a great job. Thank you very much for that. And since you did such a great job, I'm going to give you a bunch of other questions, and you'll only have 1 minute for those as well. We put 9 questions, which should have been for 9 city councilor candidates on stage, into a hat, pulled them out, and we'll read them off randomly to each one of you. We'll do a round 1, a round 2, and if we have time, maybe we'll try to squeeze in a round 3. The first question is from Ms. Panitch. Cannabis is legal in the Commonwealth, and the next wave of licenses could be in the form of cannabis delivery operators and even cannabis cafes. Do you support such an expansion? Why or why not? Ms. Panitch.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was me. To be honest, I have not thought about it particularly. I think delivery services are probably a great thing because if you were having the cannabis delivered to your house, you're not driving someplace. The cafes, really, I don't see the harm. Once you've legalized it, you've legalized it. There are people smoking on the street, you can smell it everywhere. And as far as I know, outside of the effects on driving, which are still unproven and we still don't have tests for, there doesn't seem to be any evidence that this is more harmful than alcohol. If we were to let people drink, we might as well let them smoke. And as long as you're not having the smoke drifting into the street where it's bothering other people, I'm not on the spur of the moment coming up with any reason why you shouldn't do it. I didn't bring in some revenue, so thank you.
Mr. Jourdain, would you support the formation of a police commission?
Well, I think we need to first have it go back out to public referendum. I supported that. From there, I think if this is something that the public wants to have a conversation on, I think we should. I think one of the things, however, that we did not have originally when there was efforts to do a police commission, and which makes me skeptical now of a police commission, is the fact that we have the post commission. That is already a structure that is now in place to take care of what we would call bad law enforcement. So there is a mechanism to report and to hold people accountable. So there is that outlet that we used to never have. So therefore, is there really need now to have another layer in Holyoke for another police commission? I think likely not. I'll continue to work with law enforcement and members in the community to have that conversation, but I think we would need to see how all these things were integrated together.
Mr. Sullivan, same question. Would you support the formation of a police commission?
I would support an open dialogue as far as having one. I think it's a process that needs to be explored. We have a fire commission, we have a sewer commission, we have a DPW commission, we have a conservation commission. And many of our surrounding communities also have police commissions, and I think it's something we need to discuss, debate, and come to a decision on. I would support it.
Ms. Murphy-Romboletti, what do you believe is the most important skill a city councilor should have to be most effective?
Thank you for this. I think the most important thing a city councilor can be is responsive and good at communicating. Even if you don't have all the right answers, and this has happened to me many times in just the last 18 months that I've been on the council, I may not always have the answer that someone's looking for, but everyone deserves a call back. They deserve for you to look into it, and for a city councilor to truly understand how to look into a problem at City Hall. I often find myself not necessarily needing to file an order to get these things done. I can pick up the phone and call department heads, and that's actually more efficient for local residents because they don't need a long response. They need things to get fixed, and so I think someone that's going to follow back up with them and give them that respect. And that's something I believe I've been able to do over the last 2 years and even well before that. Thank you.
Mr. Rivera, is the city doing enough to address panhandling throughout the city?
Is the city doing enough to address panhandling throughout the city? There are a variety of initiatives that I think that the city is approaching that are actually holistic, to be honest. I believe the police department has a team that actually goes out and addresses a variety of issues with the panhandlers and people that are dealing with mental health issues as well as addiction out on the street. Are we doing enough? Not enough, I don't think. I think that it's unfortunate that because we have a lot of nonprofits that provide a variety of different services, we also take on the burden of bringing in a variety of different people that need these services in this community. So I don't think that it'll ever be enough, and that we should look into partnering regionally with a variety of different towns and communities so they can help us take on the burden to fix these issues.
Mr. Fontanez, as mentioned earlier, not-for-profits are not subject to property taxes. Do you think nonprofits should be subjected to payments in lieu of taxes to supplement the current tax base?
I'm sorry, I apologize. I didn't hear the first part of the question, sir.
As mentioned earlier, nonprofits are not subject to property taxes. Do you think nonprofits should be subjected to payments in lieu of taxes to supplement the current tax base?
I honestly think it's something that should definitely be looked into, explored. People brought to the table that need to be brought to the table. Nonprofits do a lot of work. I mean, I don't believe it just gets in a little gray area, unfortunately. Depends what the nonprofit does and depends what they are doing for the community, what service they're providing, how they're providing it, where they're receiving the funding or not. It's just a lot to explore.
Mr. Maldonado Velez, ShotSpotter commenced earlier this year through grant funding. Would you support its continuation through annual budget appropriation?
Thank you for the question. I'm a supporter of Mayor Garcia and a supporter of what financial background he has when it comes to government. So the budget that he has put in front of us, I have always supported, not simply because I, again, lean on his expertise when it comes to it. What I will support is benchmarks and actual studies around if this is being an effective tool. I still stand by the fact that this system does not stop a bullet, as we have seen in this past 2 weeks. And there are other ways to do that preventive work in order for us to not even get there in the first place. Now, if this is a tool that shows, based on the data, that it does work as ineffective in lowering the crime, then, then we'll have the conversation. At the end of the day, I have spent this past year meeting with different departments, particularly the police, and at the end of the day, I just want what's best for Holyoke. And if it is ShotSpotter, that is the system that's there, even though I stand where I still stand today. The fact is, I am one vote, and I do believe in whatever systems put in place technology in order to make sure our city moves forward. Thank you.
Ms. Divine, cannabis is legal in the Commonwealth, and the next wave of licenses could be in the form of cannabis delivery operators and even cannabis cafes. Do you support such an expansion? Why or why not?
Well, cannabis is now legal in the state of Massachusetts. So, and I do think that the city council has put some restrictions in place and really some guidelines to what businesses can do. The only thing that bothers me about a cafe would be if somebody is smoking marijuana in a cafe. You're not supposed to smoke in restaurants or anything like that. So that's the only problem I would have is smoking in a cafe where children are around, and the fact that you're not supposed to be smoking tobacco in establishments. So I would be very careful of that part of it.
Mr. Fontanez, you are running as an at-large candidate while living in a specific ward. How will you go about representing the entire city?
Well, I believe I'm a good listener, and I believe that's one of the key ingredients to being a good city council at large, because you're representing the whole city. So, it pretty much it's not just a ward. So, also I believe respect. It's earned, and it's earned through work, and it's earned through not just things that you can say or something that can come off eloquently, but actual actions. I believe that representing the whole city, I'll be accessible to anybody that needs to chat, anybody, and I'll honestly say, if elected, I can say, hey, watch the city council meeting so you can see me ask your question, you know? I'm a personable person. And I'm very reachable, that's it.
Next question is for Ms. Panitch. Do you support legislation by ballot initiative?
Yes, I do. At least I do in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, because if you watch or attempt to watch our legislature, you see that it is unreasonably opaque and unreasonably unresponsive to the concerns of residents. We have the least transparent legislature in the nation, and efforts to try to bring it into light and to make our legislators accountable for what they do, what they say, have failed. And I think, it's unfortunate because many of our legislators would change the system if they didn't think that leadership would punish them for it. But as it is, the only way that certain initiatives can even get through is if they are launched by the people and if the people then sign on to them. If the system were different, I might think otherwise, but as it is, yes, I absolutely support it.
Ms. Murphy-Romboletti, would you support the formation of a police commission?
Thank you. Yes, I was one of the city councilors who filed the order to create the police commission. We're still discussing that in committee. I did look into other ways that we are currently able to do file complaints or file concerns, and there actually isn't one. The committee that has existed before this does not allow residents to submit any kind of formal complaints to anyone really other than someone who's working in the police department. And I just think, more accountability can't hurt, and it gives residents an opportunity to have their voices heard and to not feel intimidated or uncomfortable filing a complaint. And I just think it holds us all extra accountable. And like others have said, there are commissions for a lot of other departments, so I don't see the problem with having an extra layer of accountability. Thank you.
Next question is for Mr. Sullivan. ShotSpotter commenced earlier this year through grant funding. Would you support its continuation through annual budget appropriation?
Yes, I would. For me, the most important takeaway right now is it's proven to save lives. I've already heard it doesn't stop a bullet. It saves lives. It allows the police to get to the scene where a tragedy may have occurred faster, and potential to save lives is increased.
Mr. Rivera, do you support the cost and benefits of the CPA, Community Preservation Act, as adopted by the city?
I wish I had all the other questions, but that's a good question. So I do support the CPA. I think the CPA is an awesome opportunity for us to be able to use another avenue for us to be able to improve a variety of different options throughout the community. A lot of different projects that have come out of the CPA has actually been a complement to what we do in the city overall. Unfortunately, and I guess I'll use these for example, Mayor Field got improved. It would never be improved through city budget because we don't have the funds as a city to be able to do that. Parks and Recs does not have the funding to go and improve Jones Point. Right now, the idea is working towards Jones Point. These are communities that do not fall under CDBG funding, Community Development Block Grant funding. That's why in the lower wards, they get a lot of new parks and a lot of improvements. So the way we've leveraged the CPA has been able to do a lot of the areas in Ward 7, 6, and 5 that normally would be in captive captured by the CDBG. Thank you.
Ms. Divine, the next question is for you. What do you believe is the most important skill a city councilor should have to be most effective?
I think you have to be a good listener, for one thing. And I think you have to make yourself accessible. And that's pretty easy to do in this day and age with Facebook, with emails, with cell phone numbers. You need to get back to people when they call you. You need to get back to people if they email you something. So I think accessibility is one of the best qualities somebody could have, and I think it's extremely important that the citizens of Holyoke, when they call you, regardless of what they need to know, you need to get back to them, and I think that's the most important thing.
Mr. Jourdain, you're running as an at-large candidate while living in a specific ward. How will you go about representing the entire city?
Well, I have had the privilege of being both a ward councilor and an at-large councilor, and I will say that I make it a concerted effort to attend events everywhere throughout the city. I have stayed connected with everyone throughout all the sections of the city, and obviously when you serve for as long as I have in this community, you've gotten to know people, it's like you become part of the family. And this is what really, I'm certainly not doing it for the money, that's for sure. I'm doing it because of really, and everyone here is all civic-minded, good people. We're doing it basically out of love of the community, and you just really want to serve and have an opportunity to serve. So those personal relationships, helping in little ways, if it's the tree in South Holyoke, I was walking South Holyoke with some of the residents earlier this year, or if it's in Ward 7, wherever it may be, I do make a concerted effort to be everywhere in the city, extremely responsive, and I think this is why I've been re-elected as many times as I have. Thank you.
Our last question, Mr. Maldonado Velez, as mentioned earlier, not-for-profits are not subject to property taxes. Do you think nonprofits should be subjected to payments in lieu of taxes to supplement the current tax base?
Thank you for the question. I think first of all, payment in lieu of taxes, that's the mayor's role. That he's the one that has these conversations with these nonprofits. I think it's also important to note that just because you're a nonprofit doesn't mean that you may not be paying taxes through renting out a specific location that is owned by a for-profit organization. It's also important to know that there's nonprofits, for example, using Councilor Murphy-Romboletti, where she's the ED, where she's investing in community members that end up opening businesses such as Crave, for example, in order for it to join the tax base. So we have this, I think the first thing that we need to look at is stop thinking that nonprofit are not paying taxes. They may not be taking taxes in the short term, but their investment in the community is actually what will bring and enlarge our tax base in the long term. Thank you.
I wish we had time for a third round, because your answers have been terrific, and you guys have been very patient with the time limitation. But I want to make sure that we've got enough time for our closing statements. Those are supposed to begin at 8:20, and it's now 8:19, so you guys have done a terrific job. Thank you for that. Closing statements are limited to 60 seconds each, and they'll be in the opposite order from the opening. So our first closing statement will be Ms. Panitch.
First, again, thank you to the Taxpayers Association for hosting this forum. I know that it is a lot of work to put together. There are a lot of horses to wrangle, and you've done a great job with it, so thank you. And given the time restraints, I think what I'm going to say here is just we have not been able to cover anything in any depth. There's more to be said about every single thing that was discussed. And I would love to do that for anybody who wants to follow up on any questions. My campaign email is mimi4holyoke, that's the numeral 4, @gmail.com. I've got a campaign Zoom account. I've got a campaign phone number. I would be delighted to talk to anybody about any of this, and I hope you'll reach out and find me on Facebook if you just want to follow along with Policy Chit Chat. And thank you all for your attention tonight.
Mr. Sullivan, your closing statement.
Thank you. Really enjoyed tonight. Three things I want to focus on is what I started with. Voter apathy. We've got to do a better job. I hope everybody that's listening out there gets out and pushes all their friends, all their acquaintances, everyone to get out there and vote on November 7th and vote for me. I can't emphasize enough the opportunity we have right now in this city. I'll do everything in my power to further our green energy footprint. It's a once-in-a-generation opportunity to take care of a lot of the issues we've addressed. From the tax rate, unemployment, the future of the city, and directly affect what's going on globally, climate change. And we see that right now ourselves in our antiquated sewer system, the work that needs to be done. And this is an opportunity for Holyoke to step into the limelight and return ourselves to some of the prosperity that we used to enjoy.
Mr. Fontanez, your closing statement.
You're welcome for the 2 extra minutes. But no, seriously. I just want to say I would carry myself respectfully, I would be reachable, and I'm ready to listen and continue to learn because we never stop learning, and there are a lot of learning curves along the way, especially in a political career, but I believe that with the proper continuing guidance and the support from the city, I would be a great city council at large. I just want to put out there again, my phone number is 413-230-6778. My email account is axelfontanez@gmail.com. My Facebook is Axel Fontanez, very easy. And anybody can feel more than welcome, and I'm available. Thank you.
Mr. Rivera, your closing statement.
Thank you, Tom. So I guess I did all the things for all the other people in the intro, and lastly now I'll thank the constituents, right? Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for participating in the process, and thank you for voting me in the last time. I really appreciate it. These last 18 months have been an awesome learning experience for me, and it has been an awesome experience being able to share the chambers with a variety of different colleagues, whether I agree or disagree with them. It's been an experience where I will cherish and learn forever, and hopefully speak to my daughters about it in the future. At the same time, please vote Israel Rivera on November 7th. I'm fortunate that my information is already on the city website, so just go to holyoke.org and you'll be able to find me. And at the same time, I fight for the people, the genuine, real person, the everyday, local Holyoker. I'm all about realness, no smoke and mirrors, no making up stories. This is what it is. You see me who I am. I wear my feelings on my sleeve. Feel free to reach out, ask me any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Maldonado Velez, your closing statement.
Thank you. Quiero cerrar este debate hablando en español. Y quiero hablar español porque era mi primer idioma. Y estuve en un edificio que me enseñaba que no debo de hablar español, que debo de hablar inglés todo el tiempo. Y el tiempo que tenemos representantes, el concejal en la alcaldía que sepa y conozca y hablar el idioma de la gente de nuestra ciudad, bien importante. Y lo que quiero terminar diciendo es que en el 7 de noviembre van a votar por un concejal nuevo, van a votar por un tesoro nuevo o el mismo tesoro. Pero nada importa si la gente de la comunidad no se levanta y hacen cambio en nuestras comunidades. El esfuerzo de cambiar a Holyoke es el esfuerzo de todos nosotros, no solamente los que están aquí arriba elegidos. So I just want to finish what I was saying, to make a better Holyoke, just how it started, it's going to be the effort of all of us, not just us that are elected. So whether it's me on the city council or any of us, it's the community as a whole that's going to make sure that Holyoke becomes the best city that it can be. Thank you.
Mr. Jourdain, your closing statement.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Thank you very much again to the Holyoke Taxpayers Association for sponsoring this forum. For everyone that's listening to this either now or in the recorded version, I do really appreciate the opportunity to discuss our city's future here this evening. And let's be honest, there's a lot at stake for the future of our city in this election. In a world of rapidly increasing cost, we need to make sure Holyoke remains an affordable place for families to live. We also need to make sure that our streets are safe and secure, free from violent criminals who would seek to do us harm. We need to restore local control of our schools to provide a quality education to every child in this city. And we need to make sure we keep improving our downtown to attract new job opportunities. I believe my years of trust and experience, my willingness to be a strong, independent voice for the people, uniquely position me to represent the people of Holyoke on the City Council. And so I do, and again, respectfully and humbly ask you for one of your 6 votes for me, Kevin Jourdain, on November 7th. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Ms. Murphy-Romboletti, your closing statement.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for organizing this event tonight. I'm running for re-election to the Holyoke City Council because I believe it's important that a person like me is there. To give you a little bit of background on the type of city councilor that I am, I find myself oftentimes kind of in the middle of the road. I don't always vote one way, I don't always vote another way, and I really believe that this is similar to what we see across the country. We need to find a common ground. I really believe in being the bridge that brings people together, and I understand that that means I may not always get what I want, and you may not always get what you want, but in the end, we need to do what's best for the city. So I'm prepared to continue to be that voice. I'm prepared to continue to represent all of our city's residents. I feel like I've constantly trying to build that bridge, whether it's volunteering for the parade committee or volunteering at the Fiestas Patronales. I want to serve the entire city. So thank you for this opportunity, and I hope to have one of your votes on November 7th.
Ms. Divine, your closing statement.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Holyoke Taxpayers Association, and thanks to John and Lori for keeping us on our toes. I'd also like to thank the endorsements I've received from Mayor Joshua Garcia, from former Mayor Elaine Pluta, Barbara Bernard, former columnist for the Republican, Local 1693 of the Holyoke Firefighters Union, and Holyoke Forward PAC. I do believe we can get out of state receivership of our schools. I think that we could propose that the state temporarily gives us back the opportunity to run our schools and give us a chance without state interference. And remember, if you see something, say something. I'd ask for your vote on Tuesday, November 7th. I'm number 1 on the ballot. Thank you very much.
As I ask Helene from the Holyoke Taxpayers Association to come back up and conclude our event this evening, I feel like I need to say that as a 23-year resident of the city of Holyoke, I've never been prouder of a selection of 8 candidates for city council at large. Appreciate your cooperation, your answers, your diligence, your thoughtfulness. It's been a privilege to be your moderator, and I'm going to turn it back over to Helene. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom. You did a great job. Obviously, representing Holyoke Taxpayers Association, we want to thank you all for coming and thank all of you that have come to be in the audience here tonight. We also want to just highlight for a second the people that helped put all of this together. We had ALA, the translation group, police department, the fire department, MIFA, Gary Rome Hyundai, the Holyoke Mall, Meridian Industrial, Jeff Trask, thank you for running the Facebook thing this evening, the streaming, all of the Holyoke Taxpayers Association membership, Dr. Anthony Soto of the school department, the staff here at the high school, Mr. Todd, our wonderful moderator, Tom Creed, and most of all, the candidates who have thrown their hat in and show interest in continuing and being involved in Holyoke. Thank you all, and the most important thing now is to make sure you get out and vote. I want to ask you to, when you're leaving tonight, you're going to want to talk with your friends, but we do have to be out of the building by 9 o'clock, and I'm also going to say, drive carefully. Thanks, everybody. Now you can clap.